Okay, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Some of you have asked about doing some of the word problems, and so this is going to be from chapter 10. And I'm going to do the chapter post-test example number 1 on page 178 in your textbook. So number 1. So on these it says calculate the volume in milliliters that the nurse should draw into the syringe, round the final answer to the nearest tenth. So our question 1 says a provider orders acetazolamide 500 milligrams IV every 12 hours. The pharmacy provides the medication in vials containing 500 milligrams, so 500 milligram in one vial. The vial label states that the contents should be reconstituted with 5 milliliters of sterile water. 5 milliliters of sterile water to yield a final concentration of 100 milligrams per milliliter. So again, it's telling us to solve for milliliters. So that tells us where we need to start. So on these, some math questions that you'll see have information in them that we won't use. So if you ever get to a spot where you can't plug in any other information, then you have to assume in the problem that you can't use that information. So we're just going to let this kind of dictate where we go. So on this it says reconstituted with 5 milliliters. So that means that we're going to put this amount into this vial to yield an amount of this. So this is what we kind of are most concerned with, is the reconstituted amount, or if it might say final concentration. That's the biggest part that we're looking for of these problems. So with that being said, we don't use that. I mean, we would use it to make this amount, but we're not going to use that in our problem. So this is the milliliters here that we're going to use. 1 milliliter is equivalent to 100 milligrams. And since the vial that we have, this is telling us what we have in the medication, and ultimately it's telling us that we have 100 milligrams per milliliter in this vial, so that becomes non-important. But the amount that we are going to give the patient is important, because ultimately we want to know how much of that medication we need to give. So with that being said, our milligrams goes here. So then we have 500 milligrams then over 1. Your milligrams would cancel out, leaving you with 1 times 500 over 100, and that gives us 5 milliliters that need to be given in order to make 500 milligrams for our patient to receive.